As Joe Brady gets his offensive coordinator in Pete Carmichael Jr., who spent the last 2 seasons in Denver as a senior offensive assistant, but most notably was the offensive coordinator under Sean Payton in New Orleans from 2009 to 2023. We've got more on this hiring up at our website, WGR550.com. And do stay tuned. Sal Capaccio will join the show in just a little bit at 4 p.m. A bit of a surprise in Minnesota. The Vikings, they're firing general manager Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah after 4 seasons on the job. Vikings did announce that executive vice president of football operations, Rob Brzezinski, is going to lead the front office through the 2026 draft, and then after that, they'll kind of figure everything out. To the Eagles, they are hiring former Bucs offensive coordinator Josh Grizzard to serve as the team's passing game coordinator. And some salary cap news. Tom Pelissero is reporting that the NFL Informed Clubs today is projecting a 2026 salary cap in the range of $301.2 million and $305.7 million per club. And for context, this year it was at $279.2 million. Over to the Sabres, no game tonight. They have, though, won 5 in a row following last night's win. They're back in action tomorrow when they host Montreal, a team they have already beat twice this month. Game time tomorrow is at 7. It'll be right here on WGR. And then around the league tonight, just one game. It's at 8:30. Chicago, they host Columbus. And in college hoops tonight, Niagara, they host Siena just after 6:30. Pregame will get underway at 6:10, and you can hear both over on AM 1400. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of being your hometown dealership. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
My dad's not here right now. He's still at work. So I'm going to blast him.
Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
I'm going to see if there's a clean version so that my parents and the people at my school will not get mad at me. We've got the spritzer filled with water, just in case if stuff gets too fire. I'm going to set up the speaker, and I'm going to listen to
Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
I think this is the best
Mike Schopp
feature that I've heard in a long time. I think his flow is really good in it, and I like his aggressiveness on it. And
the Bulldog.
Put not enough effort in it. I think overall his flow was good, but I don't like that mobile rapping. That was my review of
Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
Didn't need a spritzer. Wasn't fire enough. No spritzer for you. No spritzer.
Okay, all right. Good afternoon, everyone. I am the Bulldog. Mike Schopp has the day off today. And how's about that hockey team, everybody? How's about that hockey team? How deep in the fields do the Sabres have their fans? Are you at least I got to think the bare minimum is they've got your attention. But that probably should have happened, I don't know, a month ago, maybe. Last night, I mean, a 4-1 win over the Kings is not like, I'm not here to fly a banner over that. Although I did think, we talked to Paul. We did pregame yesterday. I got home last night. My oldest son, Owen, the hockey fanatic that he is waiting there watching Duffer and Marty Baron on the MSG pregame show. I don't know why he wasn't listening to us. Anyway, he's watching the game quickly. I got to get settled and make dinner plans and whatnot. Prepare dinner, really. The plan was in place. Not that you need to know that. And I said, man, it's going to be a tough game tonight. The Kings are big. They're physical. They're hard. They're like Dallas, but not as good. They are just gonna try to pin you on the walls and not let you use any of your speed and skill. And the game was not like it was pretty much that game, but the Sabres just found their way to a comfortable kind of cruise control-y 4-1 win to put them, just in this spot that they're in right now, 8 points clear of falling out of a wild card is where they're like 8 points safe Montreal and Boston are the wild card teams. They are tied with the same amount of points as the Sabres because they keep winning too. This division is on a bender. I don't know that it still holds true that since December 23rd, the 5 best records in the league are the top 5 teams in the Atlantic Division. Because Detroit's somebody in here has had, Montreal is 5-4-1 in their last 10. So maybe they've dropped out of there. But I know last week there was a game on TNT involving teams from this division. I don't remember which ones now. Boston, Montreal, I think it was. And they showed that graphic sometime in the third period about how the top 5 teams in the Atlantic have the 5 best records in the league since a couple of days before Christmas. Tampa still on the same heater. Detroit still on a pretty good heater. The Sabres obviously still. Boston still on that. Montreal, like I said, is, been a little rockier. They played the Sabres twice. That'll do it. And they play the Sabres again tomorrow. But look at how they're playing, how they beat LA, all of that, I think needs to be sort of pushed aside today because of what happened after the game that got my attention immediately. We're at, okay, let me hang out. Like the game ends. It's getting to be like football games. When the Bills play a night game and, it's midnight and you're supposed to go to bed, but you're kind of wound up and you want to see would anybody say anything interesting from the locker room? What do the coach have to say? What are the fans saying? I'm getting like that with these Sabres games again. And so last night, turn the set off downstairs, go upstairs, get ready for bed. I'm scrolling, and I see reference to Alex Tuck having said something that, to me, wasn't a comment, wasn't a statement. It was a declaration Alex Tuck made in the locker room last night. And then eventually, I think through Matt Beauvais, I saw the video of it. Not that I needed the video of it, but I quote tweeted the video of Alex Tuck saying what he said last night. I want to play it for you in case by some chance you are out there in radio land and you have not heard what Alex Tuck said in the locker room last night. Here is that.
Everybody's coming in trying to prove themselves, and we're trying to prove as a team that we're legit. We're not just going to go for the playoffs. We're going to go for the cup, and that's our goal, to get better each and every day. That's it. That's the end goal. We're going to be ready to win.
We're not just trying to make the playoffs. We're going for the cup. That's why I say that's a declaration. That is not just a thing you say casually. And I don't know, maybe it was jarring. I admit it was to me to hear someone on the Sabres say that in that locker room, a locker room that has not seen the postseason in 14 seasons. But their record right now, this run that they're on, 23-1 is 20 wins, 3 losses, 1 overtime/shootout loss. That was the Minnesota game was an overtime loss, right? So that's it. I think I saw this earlier today, the 5th best run in history. Like all time. Like one of the teams on that list is like the 1932 Bruins. Okay? So they are on an all-time heater, and Tuck being the one who said that was notable because of his status, mostly to me. That was when I saw the video, I saw the comment or read about the comment, saw the video of him saying it, and immediately quote tweeted, okay, well, you can't trade the guy that just said this in that room. That just cannot happen. And I don't know if there's a contract extension looming or what, but that he just became untradeable. Because the uproar, I just cannot imagine the general manager of this team that just took over when Kevin Adams was disposed of, Jarmo Kekalainen, trying to walk into that room or go to a news conference explaining how he needed, the pick and the prospect and the whatever that you're going to get maybe for Alex Tuck because you don't have him signed to a contract extension. I think there are only now two ways forward with Alex Tuck. You signed him to a contract that pays him, I don't know, north of $80 million over 8 years, or you just let him play out this season and hope that he continues to like grind as hard as he has been for you and helps you go as far as you can go. And then the summer comes and you let him go to the market. I mean, I guess you could always sign him at some point between the time your season ends. If Alex Tuck is right, sometime in June and free agency opening on July 1st. I mean, you certainly there is still a window there, but the risks are obvious. I wonder if it means that there is a deal coming soon, that they're close, because I don't know that Tuck would sound like that if he didn't think he was a part of the long-term plan. He could be that into it. I'm just going to. I know what my situation is. The reality is we haven't been able to agree on a contract, and I'm going to bet on myself and all that kind of stuff that players sometimes choose to do. But he cannot, in any way, shape, or form, be a piece that you trade at the deadline when he is standing. He wears a letter on this team, and he stood in that locker room yesterday and said, "We think we can win the Stanley Cup." I heard a little bit of Jeremy and Joe this morning talking about, like, when was the last time someone involved with that organization talked about winning the Stanley Cup, competing for the Stanley Cup? And I'm glad, because I did this last night, and I thought, is it all the way back to when Pegula bought the team and talked about, competing for the Stanley Cup? That's how he said it. Mike and I talked about this earlier this week, the inflection on the Lee part of Stanley Cup. But it wasn't. Jeremy, good for him, remembered that Kevin Adams at one point, maybe going into year 2 with Granato, made reference to a cup window being open or something to that effect. And then Joe was there with the memory of the Sabres in-house team producing, one of the pieces that they do behind the scenes. Is it Behind the Blue and Gold, they call it? Behind the Blue and Red is the Bills version of that from Pegula Sports Enterprises. When that offseason where they signed Taylor Hall to a 1-year deal, you didn't see Pegula say it, but you heard him, I presume, like on a speakerphone, talking to Kevin Adams, and said, if we make this signing, we're going for the I don't know if he said it the same way, but I'll just, because he said it that one time. If we make this signing, we're not just trying to be in the playoffs. We're trying to win the Stanley Cup, is what he said in that piece. And that's been, something that has been used to make fun of them and him, I guess, individually, but more the organization and how misguided that was, because that was, of course, another terrible lost season, and Taylor Hall didn't even make it out of the entire season. That was also the season that they signed Eric Stahl to play for them, which is still sort of mind-boggling. Anyway, but Tuck is standing in the room saying the Stanley Cup. And, you can say slow your roll. You've been hot for 6 weeks, maybe. But they're playing as well as anyone right now in this league. They're playing better than almost everyone. There are some teams, and we'll see. They meet Tampa this weekend. Not this weekend, after the weekend. It's Monday, Tuesday, Florida and Tampa. I'm sorry, I'm not sure I know the order of those games. But the Florida trip is here, and they will play those two teams on Monday and Tuesday. Tampa, of course. Florida's the 2-time defending Stanley Cup champs, was in the final the year before that. But they're one of the teams that is right now outside looking in, chasing this pack at the top of the Atlantic that just cannot stop winning games. Tampa wins again last night. Detroit lost somehow even in regulation with like 8 seconds to go. Thank God for that. Montreal hammered Colorado. That's what you get for wearing the Quebec Nordique gear in Montreal, Colorado. So that happened, and Boston won again. So everybody just keeps going. I loved it from Tuck, mostly because of what I'm saying here, which is what it represents. Whether they're actually going to, make the playoffs and win rounds and look like an actual Stanley Cup contender, someone having the balls to say that in that room right now should go a long way with that group. The fact that it was Alex Tuck and his contract is up means to me that's it. he is untouchable. You cannot divest yourself of that player. Just the optics would be horrendous if you did it. And frankly, without him saying that, I may have thought the chances of them trading him anyway were really slim with how good they've been going here. Whether it's like fifth best 24-game sample all time, which I mentioned it is, or not, how good they've been going almost requires you to just swallow hard. And if he's going to fly the coop at the end of this and you can't agree on a number, I think you got to just play it out with him. You cannot remove him from the team. And so I don't even know. I think I don't want to keep saying it because I think it's almost obvious. I think it should be obvious. You know, you are not going to make that trade and get Alex Tuch back. You know, you may think you have more forwards on the come here that, you know, signing him to an 8-year extension for north of $10 million, maybe approaching $11 million, is not smart money in the long run, given his age. And you can make a case. But what you can't do is remove him now to protect futures, to gather futures. You just can't. You just can't. I'd love to know, what his motivation for saying that was. If it was calculated or if it just kind of flew out of his mouth. Hopefully it's an indication that they're close on a contract extension and a scenario where he leaves you for nothing is not going to come to pass. But regardless, Alex Tuch is here for the duration of this ride, however far it goes. Hopefully long into the spring, because the Sabres are in great shape. They're not in great shape to finish necessarily third in the division because of Montreal and Boston tied in points with them right now. The Sabres have games in hand on both teams. In the case of Montreal, 1. In the case of Boston, 2 games in hand. So, and again, but they're 8 points clear. Those 3 teams are 8 points clear of the nearest wild card competitor. Washington is in that group too at 59 points with Florida. But Montreal and Boston at 67, the Sabres at 67. So you've got heading toward the Olympic break. There's 4 more games. These games Monday and Tuesday in Florida and Tampa that I mentioned. Of course, you've got tomorrow night home against Montreal, and then a Thursday game next Thursday against Pittsburgh, and then you're off for 20 days. So the Sabres are going to be in a playoff spot by the time we get to that. It's just a question of how solid they are. Can they win? I don't know. Can they get 3 out of 4 points on this Florida trip, which is, again, a hard trip? I don't think you can really focus on where Florida is in the standings. You know how good they are and how challenging they can be as an opponent. And Tampa is back to being the wagon that Tampa often has been for the last, 10 years or so. They look great again. So those are 2 tough road games for sure. Not to look past tomorrow. I mean, how long do you think it's been for Sabres fans? 803-0550, by the way, is the number. We are chock full of guests, so if you got a thought, if I'm hitting any nerves with you here, feel free to get in here, because we'll be guested up pretty hard for the next few hours. Paul Hamilton right out of the box here at 3:30, Sal at 4 o'clock, our buddy Connor Rogers on the NFL offseason so far at 4:30, and Travis Yost back to the Sabres at 5. That's the guest rundown we've got booked for you here. So, your windows are not as readily available as usual. So now's good. How long has it been for you as a fan since you were, winding through your Friday? Maybe you're a quit early, hit happy hour on a Friday kind of person. And you got to be looking so forward to tomorrow night's game against Montreal. I mean, that is a team that I fully expect you're going to be duking it out with for the rest of this season. And, if these builds hold up, maybe for the foreseeable future. I think Buffalo and Montreal right now are two of the best stories in the entire league because they're fast. There's young guys that are having big impacts, more so with Montreal, I would say. I mean, we'll see if Helenus and Osland can sort of, become even more impactful than they've been already. But Montreal's got guys that are in their first or second years that are just killing it for them. Defenseman Lane Hudson, Demidov, a forward, other young guys still too there. These two teams right now look poised to really be noisemakers, I think, for the immediate future. And I don't know, we'll see how far it goes. But I can't remember the last time on a Friday afternoon I wished the Sabre game were tonight. To have Saturday night downtown Montreal with having just played them twice recently. It's a third meeting in a little more than 2 weeks, which is super hot. It started to get a little nasty the last time they were up in Montreal last Thursday, and, man, I'm just totally here for it. It just feels so good to have this team back and to have someone on the team, the level of leader that Alex Tuch is, talk about the Stanley Cup, which he did last night in the locker room. Eddie is first up this segment. Hi, Eddie. Thank you for calling. You're on WGR.
Hey, thanks for Hockey Central. It's a breath of fresh air even in this frigid world we're living in. Bulldog, I wanted to mention a couple things. One, my son, these young people have got me watching a lot of games on a super secret service device. And, I'm listening to, it started in Nashville, I think it was. And it's so interesting to hear out-of-town announcers talk about what they're seeing on the ice versus the guys we know. And I remember the Nashville game, the young guys got on the ice, and they immediately said, hey, these are some of the prospects that Buffalo has been, gathering over the past years. And the one guy goes, yeah, I think the guy's 19. And he goes, well, the other guy's 20. And he goes, yeah, I think this guy's 21. And they scored while they were talking about him. And they were like, well, that happened quick. And then as the game went on, of course, they scored 3 times in the same period. Yeah. And the guys just couldn't stop talking about the Sabres. And then and then you flip that to what happened in Toronto. And I don't know if you saw the Toronto version of the game.
I did not.
You didn't miss anything because they spent a whole mid-period showing all of the Sabre coaches in the Maid of the Mist going over the falls to depict how long we've suffered. And then all of the players, of course, they never mentioned how they haven't reached the finals with this amazing group of talent over the past decade. Not a word about that, but, they were definitely in their tears that night. And the only thing I wanted to add to that, Bulldog, is that I heard a TSN interview with Tage when he got chosen to come to the Olympic team, and it was on a national coverage. Mm-hmm. And they were talking to him. I think it might have been like the third or fourth game in that beginning turnaround in the 10-game win streak when they asked him if anything had been done, and blah blah blah. And he said, when the new GM was hired, the 6 veteran guys, Dahlin he mentioned. Talk himself. He didn't mention anyone else, but he did say there were 6 of them. Mm-hmm. And they said they got in a room and they said, what can we do? And Dahlin said, listen, I don't play a good game. I want one of you to tell me. And I have no problem telling one of you. But if we do that for each other, the rest of them are going to follow. And I'm sure Zucker was with them on that too. And I just think what they're doing is exciting. I think it's fun to see. And, it's not fluky. That is, I think, the key there is that it's not fluky. And it's great. My son and I are going to the Pittsburgh game before the 20-game break.
Awesome.
And I get to see Sidney Crosby. But, it's exciting that hockey is
I love to hear it, Eddie. And I'm also going to that game. It'll be my first game of the season. I just have not found my way down there yet. And go figure, suddenly the tickets are going to be hard to find, which is exactly how it should be when you win 20 of your last 24 games, which is what the Sabres have done. Mike is next up. Hi, Mike. Thanks for calling. You're on WGR.
Good afternoon, Bulldog. If Terry Pagula's listening and Yarmo's listening, let's stop wasting time on Alex Tuck's contract. Let's actually get it done. He's an important piece to the Sabres. Look at the Sabres. I mean, one guy in the dressing room is actually talking about winning the cup. We have not heard that in a decade, more than a decade from this team. It's scary that the team is that good. I'm down there almost every night working down there, and I see it from my own eyes. That team is for real, and look out Sabres, and look out the rest of the NHL, because that 14-year drought is going bye-bye, and look out the rest of the teams because we're coming.
Love to hear it, Mike. Appreciate the call very much. We'll hit up a timeout here. Paul Hamilton will weigh in on the impact of Tuck's comments and the way forward for him. And, maybe we'll preview the Montreal game a little bit. We're just going to talk some hockey. Plenty of hockey today. Again, Paul coming right up. Sal at 4. We'll get a little more football with Connor Rogers at 4:30. And then Travis Yost from TSN at 5 back in on the Sabres. It is a great time. Very long time coming, obviously. Way too long a time coming. But Sabres fans, you should be feeling it. Alex Tuck is feeling it. Like, he says they're trying to win the cup now, which is just didn't think we'd be there here on January 30th, I can tell you that. I am the Bulldog. Mike is off today. Paul Hamilton right after this on WGR. That Open's been around a long, long time. It might even go back to when I worked mornings at this station, which was in the early 2000s. Paul, life advice for Paul. Paul, just say they're going to win. It's all they do is win. So
I can make a prediction for tonight. They will not win tonight.
Anybody asks you, they're going to win. Paul Hamilton on the Western Hotline. Paul, how much more fun is your job right now than it was 2 months ago?
It's different. I mean, which is nice because for 14 years it pretty much was the same. I mean, I can't tell you how many players just looked at me like, "What do you want me to say?"
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I kind of look back like, "What do you want me to ask?" It's the same thing.
Yeah,
we're watching the same record playing every single night. And it rarely changes. You know, the odd night that it did change and they actually did do what they were supposed to do, it was like, yay, and now we get to ask different questions for one game.
Yep.
And then it would go back to it. So, you know, that's the thing, that now it makes things more interesting. There's more topics. There's more things to talk about, like Rasmus Dahlin in Toronto. You know, it's like, well, how do you feel now that you're being chased? He started laughing. He goes, I don't know. It's a first for me.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've never done this before. It's kind of fun. You know, stuff like that.
Yep.
Where, you know, we never could ask that question before.
So I assume you were standing around Alex Tuck last night. I didn't notice your mic flag, and I didn't check with you about this when we settled on this time for your appearance today. How did him saying what he said about competing for the Cup land on you? How did it land in the room? Because there were a number of reporters gathered around him when he said it.
Yeah, it didn't surprise me. I mean, Alex Tuck is a leader, and it just takes me – we've discussed this before even we heard that it's to a point now where Alex Tuck is a big part of that room. You can't take him out of the room this year. You just can't. And I think Jarmo Kekalainen knows that. I mean, you look at what he did when he was in Columbus. You know, he would be bold, and – I think he understands that. I think it would be devastating to this team if, you know, let's say, for example, Alex Tuck came and said, you know what, I'm not going to sign with the Sabres. I'm going to free agency. And I think the Sabres need to and probably would say, okay, and not trade him. I mean, you would get a good haul for him, but it would be mostly draft picks and guys who are in development, and that's not what they need right now. They don't need that. They have enough of that stuff. So you're better off if that were to happen, and I have no indication it would. I'm just using it as an example, to just, all right, now he becomes a Sabre rental instead of a rental you just traded for from the New Jersey Devils. And, you know, you go as far as you can with him, and at the end of the season, if he doesn't sign, and he leaves for free. So what? I mean, that's what this team needs right now. And I just don't see any scenario where you're going to trade him off this team.
That I was feeling that way. I don't think we've really talked about it in a while. But I've been feeling that way since they got hot, since they got into a playoff position, that, you know, it's just going to be very difficult for them to pull off trading him away for futures. And so even before he said what he said last night, I was of the mind that, and I know Kekalainen, you know, all we can do is judge someone by their track record. He hasn't really done anything major since he's been here other than watch this team just win like crazy since he took over, and really right before he took over, right? Because the first 3 games of that win streak were before Kevin Adams was fired. But he did 1 year in Columbus, keep Panarin, keep Bobrovsky, walk them right up to free agency, and they both left. And, you know, you could say that was, you know, mismanagement, but he bet on we as an organization need to, you know, see this through, and the value of you staying here and helping us do this outweighs whatever futures we would get for you. And that's exactly where I think they were with Tuck. Now that he said what he said, he's the guy whose name is on, we think we can win the Cup. Not that he said exactly that, but we're trying to win the Cup, right? We're not just trying to squeeze in. We're trying to win the Cup. The optics of moving him for, you know, some 19-year-old guy from the Western League. I mean, you just can't do it now.
Well, yeah, and as you mentioned, you and I have talked about this way before Tuck said it. I mean, I felt this way for a while. You can't take him out of the room. He's too big of a leader. He means too much to the team. He's a big part of why they're winning. He's not the reason, but he's just one of the cogs that, I mean, I watch him during the game probably 3 times I say to myself as he takes the puck away from an unsuspecting player. It's like nobody else does that. Very few in the league do that. He is, if not one of the best, if not the best at doing that, and he quickly turns it into offense the other way. I mean, that is extremely valuable. He is a top penalty killer. He and McLeod are a dynamite pair, and not only do they kill the penalty, they add some offense to the penalty kill too, which is key. And they work in sync together. Now he's gotten red hot. He's back on a pace that would score him 35 goals. With the heater he's on right now, I believe it's 11 goals in his last 18 games. And I just think he's too valuable for with those different things that he does. Yeah, that's correct. 11 goals in 18 games.
All right.
So it just, unless you don't think they can make the playoffs as the GM, and I have no indication whatsoever that he thinks that. As a matter of fact, he has said he thinks that they can make the playoffs, and there's no question in his mind. And so far, they have backed up his words.
Yeah. Did any part of you, when you heard and saw Tuck say that last night about, trying to win the cup, think maybe an extension's close? Like, is he, I don't think, and in no way am I saying he's trying to turn the pressure up on getting an extension done, but it is sort of a long-range view type thing for a guy to say that. Certainly doesn't sound like a guy who's got one foot out the door, I guess, is what I would how I would want to put it.
Well, he has maintained, and I have no reason to doubt him, that he's not involved. I mean, he said every now and then his agent updates him, but he's not a daily thing or anything like that. He says that is his agent's job to do that. His job is to be the best teammate, best father, best husband that he can be. And when he needs to be updated, he'll be updated. But he wants to play hockey right now. He doesn't want to be bothered with that stuff. That's for his agent to be bothered with. So, and I think the way he's acting, the way he's talking backs up what he's saying. That, that's business, and that'll be taken care of however it's taken care of. I have hockey to worry about right now.
Yeah. What do you think if they, so we agree, obviously, here, and have for a while, even though we didn't say it to one another, that he's not getting moved here. But the trade deadline is coming, and a team that's won 20 of their last 24 games might be inclined to make a move to bolster the team. Like, as you're watching them, where do you see? I mean, I know it maybe sounds insane. Like, why do you want to tinker with anything? Like, look at them. Where do you think they could use, a piece here or a piece there?
To me, tinkering is depth, and they can still get some depth for their top 9. I think they could really. I don't know where Danforth is at as far as if he's going to be able to get back and in what condition. He's an excellent face-off guy. They could really use a guy who can win a key draw for them. I know they won draws last night, but that's kind of out of the.
Yeah.
And even Norris was less than 50%, which is not good for him. He over his career has been a pretty good draw guy. So whether it's Danforth or somebody they bring in, they could really use somebody where when they have to win a face-off, they can get it and keep the puck in the zone. They could maybe use a power play guy. Or that would go hand in hand with a top 6, somebody that you can, so you have some backup when you get injuries in your top 6. I don't think it would kill them to get a defenseman that they can use as a depth type of defenseman. Jump right in like Bryson and Metz have done. I think they both have done very credible jobs as the number 7 and 8 defensemen and had to play a lot. Because of injuries. So that's what I think I'd be looking for if I were them. Somebody maybe to help your power play, give you some depth on your top 6, or if you want to say top 9, and somebody that can maybe help you out with some faceoffs.
How do you feel about their goaltending moving forward? I mean, we know Luukkonen is not right. It's not thought to be long term, so that's good news. Hopefully, maybe he misses this run up to the Olympics and is back after that. Maybe for his sake, he can go play in the Olympics. We'll see about that. But I wonder if you feel, because they're like something going wrong right now. There's something going wrong with Alex Lyon away from Colton Ellis and Devin Levi being their tandem, which is maybe a little scary.
Yeah, but the thing with Ellis is he's 7-4. I mean, some of the games that he hasn't played well and he's won. And, he's also had some good games along the way too. But it just seems like somehow, like Toronto, he found a way to win. He didn't really – the goal he let in was not a good goal. He saw it the whole way. But by the time the third period rolled around, he made some big saves and made sure Toronto didn't inch back into that game, which I thought was key for him. I think Luukkonen and Lyon have been doing a great job alternating back and forth. I mean, Lyon's 10-0, Luukkonen's 7-2-1. Going into that game that Luukkonen got hurt in, they both had save percentages above 720, which is insane.
920, you mean? Yeah.
I'm sorry, 920, which is insane. I mean, a decent save percentage is, 905, 910. That's not a bad save
Especially
percentage.
now. Like, I feel like save percentages are down around the league because, like, shots are down around the league, so you're getting fewer opportunities to make saves. I mean, so goals are still going to go in. So anyway, I think we have to adjust what is a good save percentage even,
Yeah, Dominik Hasek, who, by the way, his documentary comes out today. They're having the viewing today. In his day, there were a lot of goalies that had 920 save percentage. If you didn't have a 920 save percentage, you probably weren't a very good goalie.
You weren't a number one. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, as you said, that's totally changed. And here are those two goaltenders. For a good period of time, we're both 920 or over.
What did you think of last night, Paul? I walked in the door. We talked about it on pregame. I walked in the door and said to Owen, this is a tough game tonight. Like, I don't care what this team's record is, their style of play. Like, this is going to be a kind of a grind of a game here, and I'm curious to see how it goes. And I don't know. It wasn't. I don't want to say it was easy, but it was never not their game, I think.
And that's because they did what Lindy Ruff talked about in the pregame, but they did it early. They popped a few goals in. And that takes LA out of their system then. I remember a couple of years ago where the Sabres were 0-0 going into the third period, did a great job of being very patient, and then scored a goal or two early in the third period and won 4-0 because they pulled LA out of their structure. And that's exactly what the Sabres did early. Los Angeles did not get goaltending on the Samuelson goal, and the other one was tipped. It went in off. It was Dome putting it in off Cece. Again, Benson going to the net. He's trying to pass to Benson, has a guy with him, it hits a player and goes in. I mean, that's the way they've been scoring goals lately, earning their breaks. And they got another one against the Kings, and there they are sitting there at 2-0 in the first period. And now the Kings did pretty well, actually, out of their structure. They had 18 shots in the second period. Lindy didn't like the second period. He felt they were feeding them and feeding their transition because they were getting too cute. And I thought to myself, he's right. I was thinking back to how many 3-on-2s did they defer? You're trying to pass to covered guys. He said we were too busy going east-west, trying to make a pretty play instead of being direct and north-south. And once they got in the third period, he goes, that's what we did. He goes, there was no troubles. There was no handing the puck over. If they didn't have anything at the blue line, they put it in deep, put it below the goal line, went and forechecked. And made it a very uneventful period. I had 2 notes on my paper in the third period. That's how uneventful it was. It was, right. But that's exactly what they wanted. And that's kind of been their formula for a while now. Play a kind of not great second period, then come out and hunker it down in the third.
All right, Paul. Thanks a lot for fitting us in early today.
Yeah,
enjoy tomorrow, Montreal, and then Florida Monday, Tampa Tuesday. Should be a fun little run.
Let's see. It snowed for me in North Carolina. Now I get to go to Florida, and it's going to be in the 20s. Lovely.
I don't want to hear your complaining, Hamilton. Nobody
The
does.
20s. The
You're,
20s.
you're following the best team in the NHL, Paul.
The
Just
20s.
just live with it. All right. Thanks again for this, Paul. Have a great weekend.
Take care.
That's our dude, Paul Hamilton, on the West Her Hotline. His appearances here on WGR brought to you by Equitable Advisors. Planning for your future is about more than just money. Let Equitable be your guide. And by Raylax Honda. Raylax, we got this. 803-0550, time to squeeze in a call after the break of Zach Lets Me. Sal Capaccio coming up at the top of the hour. Mike is away today. I'm the Bulldog, and you're listening to WGR. All right, moving and grooving here on a Friday afternoon. Glad to have you along for the ride with me today. Alongside G, our video content producer, and Zach Jones. Mike Schopp has the day off. I am the Bulldog. Was hoping that there was a person on it. A bunch of people wanted to get on. I scheduled Paul, so we talked to Paul. There was a caller that hung through the break that wanted to make a point that I really wanted you all to hear. So I'm just going to tell you, this is not my thought, but I really like what this caller, it said in the window here on my computer screen, wanted to bring up. And it was simply that this feels even better, the Sabres we're talking about here, because Lindy Ruff is the coach, which is perfect. Like it almost kind of got me in the feels a little bit to see that on the screen, because we enjoyed. I'm 60 years old. I remember Lindy Ruff showing up here as a draft pick to play defense and then eventually forward and defense for the Sabres. And of course, his long tenure as head coach, highlighted by a Cup Finals appearance and then those 2 conference final runs in 06 and 07. Really the last time this Sabres organization captured the imagination of the fan base. Really captured. I mean, they won a division in 2010. They had a great push in 2011 to make the playoffs, but it's been a long time. And coming off of 05 and 06, or 06 and 07, I should say, 2010, we didn't really buy it. I mean, they had a great year in the standings and went out in the first round against Boston, and no one was really surprised. I didn't think they were a Cup contender then. And we'll see how this year goes, because they're not in first place, and I don't know. Maybe they can go beat Tampa on Tuesday and catch them eventually in the back end of the season here after the Olympic break. But when Ruff came back summer before last, when that decision was made to bring him back, the one thing I didn't want to happen most of all, of course, I wanted it to work. I wanted them to end the playoff drought. I wanted Lindy Ruff to succeed. I feel tethered to him as a hockey fan, as a Sabre fan, and as a Buffalonian, right? So he's coming back to a team at the time with a 13-season playoff drought. And I remember saying on the air, man, just don't let any of this stink get on him. Like, I don't want our memories of Lindy Ruff as a Buffalo Sabre to be tied to him coming back and this organization continuing to flail around. And last year was a flail around season, and they rolled it back. And he was here presiding over it at the start, and it looked like another season that was going to go the way the previous 13 had. 14 now. And now it's turned. And him behind the bench, him holding the news conferences before the games and after the games, is just a real tasty piece of this. I mean, it's definitely almost overwhelmingly sentimental to see him with this happening. Hopefully it just keeps going because it's been a tremendous run here. 24-1 is there, or 23-1, 20 wins, 3 losses, 1 overtime loss. That is the last 24 games. I mean, it's just remarkable. 5th best all-time stretch in league history. I'm talking, go back to 1930. All right? That's where we are. Just tremendous. Just wanted to mention that. I'm sorry the person that was holding that wanted to mention it wasn't able to, but I did for us. So there's that. All right. We'll hit a timeout. We'll get some football in here during the 4 o'clock hour. The Bills have made a couple of hires to Joe Brady's coaching staff. We'll pour over that with our Sal Capaccio right after this. I'm the Bulldog. Mike Schopp is away today. This is WGR.
In Pete Carmichael Jr., he was the offensive coordinator under Sean Payton in New Orleans from 2009 to 2023. The last 2 seasons, he's been with Denver as a senior offensive assistant. And then for special teams coordinator, the Bills are bringing in Jeff Rodgers, who served in that same role for the Arizona Cardinals since 2019. We'll get more on these hirings and the latest around the Bills as stay tuned. Sal Capaccio joins the show next. Around the NFL, a bit of a surprise today out in Minnesota. Vikings, they are firing general manager Kwesi Odefo-Mensah after 4 seasons on the job. The Vikings did announce executive vice president for football operations Rob Brzezinski will lead the front office through the 2026 draft. The Eagles, they have their passing game coordinator in former Bucs offensive coordinator Josh Grizzard. And some cap news, as Tom Pelissero is reporting. The NFL informed clubs today the projected 2026 salary cap is in the range of $301.2 million and $305.7 million per team. This year, for context, it was at $279.2 million. Over to the Sabres, no game tonight, though they have now won 5 in a row. They'll be back at it tomorrow night when they host Montreal, a team they've already beaten twice this month. Game time tomorrow is at 7, and that game will be right here on WGR. Around the league, we have just one game tonight, 8:30, Chicago hosts Columbus. And then in college hoops, Niagara, they host Siena just after 6:30. Pre-game will get underway at 6:10, and both can be heard over on AM 1400. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of being your hometown dealership. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
All right, rolling along here on a Friday. Glad to have you along for the ride. Mike Schopp has the day off today. Happy to welcome Sal Capaccio in on the West Her hotline. No shortage of news, both in the league and as it pertains to the Bills. Sal, let's first talk about this salary cap news that's within the last hour or so, or just before my show was starting here this afternoon. There has to be welcome news to every team in the league, but especially a team that's been pretty cash-strapped, cap-strapped, like the Bills have been.
Yeah, for sure. The Bills obviously have a lot of challenges with the salary cap right now. This will alleviate a little bit of that, but as far as the playing field, everybody, gets the increase, right? Of course. So,
right.
If teams had $30 million available, now they're going to have $50 million available. So, we're talking a little bit over, 22, 23 million more available per club. But for a team like the Bills, who are right up against it and we're actually projected to be over the cap right now this year, that helps that. But there's moves to be made anyway. And I'm sure the Bills were already planning for a lot of this. But, if you go back a few years ago, over the last several years, there's been plenty of times that we would meet up with Brandon Beane at the Combine. He would say, hey, the cap went up a little bit more than we thought, so we were able to keep another guy or be able to do something we didn't think we'd be able to do. So that probably is what winds up happening here in some capacity as well.
How much, if at all, have you thought about the roster and the work that will need to be done? I mean, I know it's kind of a whirlwind, right? I mean, the season ends, it's sudden, and then it's locker clean out, and then we got a coach fired and the coach hired and news conferences, and we're still in a cycle where we're waiting to see how they're going to fill out the staff. We did learn about a special teams coordinator and offensive coordinator to help Joe Brady out on that side of the ball, and we'll get to that in a moment here, still waiting on the DC. But have you thought at all about, McGovern and Edwards and a contract for Osiris Torrance and what kind of money there might be to go shopping to upgrade receiver and all that kind of stuff?
Oh, I have. The difference is this year, obviously, now we're trying to, figure out who the coaches are going to be before all of that. And I think that has to kind of happen first because you want to figure out what kind of system they run, what their priorities might be, and then you kind of get into it. But I absolutely have. The last 9 years, we haven't had to do this. I haven't had to do this. I've just basically said, okay, Sean McDermott, Brandon Beane, here's the roster, here's the contracts, let's see what they have, coming up. Now it's like, there's two parts of it, which is the coaching staff and the firing and the hiring of Joe Brady and hiring the coaching staff. That's just something that takes up your time to kind of cover. But then it's, well, let's see who they're bringing in to figure out maybe we can gain some pieces of knowledge about what they might want to run. And I think so far, though, what we are figuring out is there's going to be, to me, a pretty good overhaul on defense. And what I mean by that is we already know that there's no more Bobby Babich. He's off and gone to Green Bay. Obviously, Sean McDermott, this was his defense. We know that, there's some guys that have had contracts there on that side of the ball that have fit Sean McDermott's defense that either A, they're a little bit older or their contracts are expired, or maybe B, the Bills just say, look, we're just going to go in a different direction. So I just think that side of the ball is something that I'm going to be looking at a little bit harder and with a little bit more of a let's see what they're going to try to do here type of thing. But on the other side of the ball, you're right. I just don't see, and I didn't see it. I mean, today now you get this news about the increase. Maybe there's a way they can keep one of McGovern or Edwards. I've just felt that they've been kind of trending towards not being able to keep either of them. Mm-hmm. I think both will get pretty good contracts in free agency. And honestly, the Bills have been grooming guys there. They have Cedric Van Pran Granger that has, can play center. They have Alec Anderson who can play center and guard. They have Chase Lunt who can play guard and tackle. So I just think it feels like they're trending more towards not being able to do that. Yeah. And then maybe you start to talk about how are you going to spend money, which is acquiring free agents, trades, and that's where maybe wide receiver comes in and things like that.
How notable, if at all, did you find it that Anderson was the one who stepped in for a little bit in that Denver game? I think it was that game. It wasn't the Jacksonville game. I just know Anderson took a couple of snaps when McGovern was out, and I had always thought that Cedric Van Pran Granger was the backup center. I don't know, was that a tell at all, or do you think it was just opponent-specific?
I have to go back and remember, was Van Pran Granger active for the game? I think he was, right? I have to make sure if he even was active because it could be that too, right? But even if he was, yeah, sure. I mean, you could think about that. I think a lot of times what it is just having a guy that, you are very comfortable with. Alec Anderson's been here an extra year more than Cedric Van Pran Granger. He probably worked, both guard and center throughout the week to understand what's happening there. So I wouldn't read too much into it. I think they like Cedric Van Pran Granger. But, a lot of this is just the new offensive line coach, what he wants, right? That's something that's changing now. There's no more Aaron Kromer. Now they're going to have Pat Meyer. And, he comes from an Aaron Kromer background. He's been with Kromer. He's been with different stops. So what does he think about some of these guys? I think everything can kind of be on the table, even independent of, something that happened.
Sal Capaccio on the West Her Hotline with us here on WGR, or with me. Mike is off here. So what immediate takeaways on, the Carmichael news would have happened, I think, probably before even your Extra Point show or maybe during your Extra Point show this morning as offensive coordinator, and now we have news about a special teams coordinator too. What can you tell everyone out there about the people that are reported to be joining Joe Brady's staff?
They're a veteran, and it's a good move by Joe Brady to surround himself with coaches who are more experienced than him, much like Sean McDermott did in 2017. In 2017, I think the Bills had the most amount of years added up for all of their assistant coaches in the league. They had Rick Dennison as an offensive coordinator. They had and I always forget the offensive line coach now, and I said it yesterday, and he was with the was it Juan Castillo? No, is that his name? Was with the Eagles before that.
Yep.
And then you had, right?
I think Castillo is the guy you wanted. Yeah, I think so.
Yep. Okay. Yep. And then you had Leslie Frazier join, of course, right? I mean, he was a big part of Sean's first staff. Rob Boris, who's still on staff, by the way, as far as we know. Kelly Skipper, these were veteran coaches then. Some of them still are, coaching right now. And I think Joe Brady's kind of taking a page from that now. The difference was Sean hired a guy like Leslie. Maybe there's still something like that to come, who was a head coach in the league, who he could lean on. Joe said to us yesterday when we were down there, yeah, if you can get a guy like that, it's great, but he's not going to necessarily have to make it a priority to have a guy like that. But I do find it interesting that the first couple of hires we're learning about here, and even Pat Meyer, guys that have been around the league, he's, bringing in people that have experience. So Pat Meyer has been around the league a while. Like I said, he's been offensive line coach at different stops. He coached under Aaron Kromer here. Then you talk about Pete Carmichael. Pete Carmichael, you look at his resume, you'd think he was 70 years old. He's 54. He has been coaching a lot, right? He's been coaching a long time. He goes back to Drew Brees in San Diego. He's been around the NFL quite a while. And, he was in New Orleans as an offensive coordinator for 15 seasons and working primarily with Sean Payton. And obviously Joe came from there, and he wasn't calling plays. Sean Payton was, but he's not going to call plays in Buffalo. We know that, right? So I think that's, something that he wanted to make sure that he grabbed somebody that was veteran, somebody he knew that knew him. They could work together, same language, same system. And then the new news coming out, Jeff Rogers, the special teams coordinator, most recently of the Arizona Cardinals, and poking in on them. He actually did a pretty good job, but last year they were not very good on special teams, and just kind of reading about some of the media and fans in Arizona saying, yeah, it was a bit of a rough year last year because of a lot of injuries, but otherwise they felt he did a pretty good job with the group he had. Interestingly enough, he actually coached in Denver when Matt Prater was the kicker there that broke the record field goal back in, 2013 it might have been, I guess.
Yeah. What does, when a coordinator has that title, an offensive coordinator has that title, but isn't calling the plays, like what is that? Just like day-to-day game plan stuff? Like on game day, what is he in? Is he in the guy that's calling plays? Is he in his ear? Like how does that work? Like what are his duties, I guess?
Well, Monday through Saturday, he's running the room. He's basically coordinating the offense. He is doing everything in conjunction with, in this case, the head coach who's going to call plays. They're going to have a game plan set forth. He's going to present the game plan. Obviously, Joe Brady will be in those rooms, but Joe Brady's got to oversee the entire operation. So he becomes the de facto person in charge, right? He's the offensive coordinator. He's doing everything that Joe Brady wants him to do, that Joe Brady would be doing Monday through Saturday. Once you get to Sunday, that can look a lot different. Some coaches may want him really in touch with the head coach who's calling the plays and giving them certain situations and tendencies to be aware of. Some coaches might want him in touch with maybe the quarterback's coach and thinking about what's happening with the quarterback, what he's seeing there. So that's probably to be determined, whatever Joe Brady wants. But basically Monday through Saturday, he's the coordinator. He's the person helping. He's not necessarily putting the game plan together, but he's making sure that it's being executed the right way during practice.
So we're still waiting on defensive coordinator, and nothing against these other hires. I mean, everything goes in the stew, and everyone has a role, and everyone contributes and matters. But I feel like the attention on defensive coordinator, that having been Sean McDermott's side of the ball, we know that Bobby Babich has departed, and like we talked about when we were discussing the roster a few minutes ago, Sal, that could really be, that should be a piece that leaves us a lot of clues about what they may be doing, like philosophically, schematically, what they're going to be about on defense. Do you have a favorite idea, or really are the names that are more familiar to fans, I think, that have been discussed, Raheem Morris, Jim Schwartz, Jim Leonard, I feel like pick one of those guys and I'm fine. I'm wondering how you feel about the search, and I'm guessing there's people outside of those three candidates, because Schwartz I've not even seen attached to the Bills, nor Morris, actually, I don't think.
I like all three of those names. I do, for all the purposes we're talking about, and I agree there's some clues about how, you think that Joe Brady's probably thinking about his defense, what Brandon Beane said about alignment, and they talk about defense and the aggressiveness. I mean, the calling card of all of those guys is exactly that. It's aggressive defense. It's getting after the quarterback. Look at the numbers that Jim Leonard's defenses in Denver have been a part of, run by Vance Joseph, but he's been a part of that. I mean, they broke sack records the last couple of years. I think it's interesting that Joe Brady, who had to game plan as an offensive coordinator against the Denver Broncos in the playoffs the last 2 years, immediately identifies, reportedly, Jim Leonard as someone he wants to bring in. I don't think you do that unless you feel that was challenging for you, or you respected, at least in some level, of what you had to go against in that regard. Jim Leonard also, to me, is close enough removed from the game, and the college game, by the way, where he was at Wisconsin, that he might be able to relate to younger players and how they're thinking and some of the new ways of teaching football. There's been a lot of changes over the years. So I like a lot of those aspects that go into it. Raheem Morris is a bit different because he's been around a long time. He's been a coach. He's been a head coach in this league. You want to talk about bringing a guy in to be a head coach on your staff.
There's that piece right there. Yeah.
That's right. And that could be someone that Joe Brady could lean on. And I do remember when Raheem Morris was even being talked about as a head coach candidate in Atlanta, how much Les Snead in LA was pushing for him. He's like, this guy's great. Like, I don't want to lose him, but he's amazing. Like, he deserves a shot. He's really great at what he does. He's very, very well respected around the league. He's had good defenses, and I don't know if the numbers necessarily always translate. You can parse those things. People look at the rankings, stuff like that, but I think he's done a very good job respectfully with the pieces he's had, what he wants to do philosophically, all those kinds of things that go along with it. So that could be something that you take a look at if you're Joe Brady and you want. And then there's Jim Schwartz, who he also has been a head coach in this league. He also, as Mike rightfully pointed out yesterday, he left Buffalo partly because, hey, Rex Ryan got the job. He didn't. Well, that's not going to mesh. He leaves. Now he's in a situation where, well, I wanted to be the head man. I mean, I don't want to be scared off by a Jim Schwartz ego necessarily, but I do think you bring someone like Jim Schwartz in the building, you have to understand what goes along with a guy like Jim Schwartz.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be his show, right? He's going to run that side of the ball. I'm not saying Raheem Morris wouldn't, and I'm not saying that Jim Leonard wouldn't, but I think Joe Brady has to be very comfortable with people like that.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point. Sal Capaccio on the West Her Hotline with us for just a few more minutes here on WGR. I realized, thinking about talking to you today, we visited with you yesterday. Of course, the news conference happened. Josh Allen was there, and he had his own news conference. We never even talked with you about him showing up on crutches and with that walking boot on the foot. I mean, it's the offseason, so no big deal, but that was kind of jarring to see that, here we are, a couple of weeks after they played their last game, and he was injured enough that he's on crutches and has a walking boot. That really says a lot, I think, about what he was playing through.
No doubt. And it's jarring, too, because we never see Josh like that, right?
Right.
We don't see him injured. Josh Allen has currently, knock on some wood there in the studio, please, for me, the current longest active starting streak of any quarterback in the National Football League. It's very important to him. We talked about that, in Week 18. He was dealing with it Week 18 and took that one snap and came out, and there was a lot of debate about that. But, this guy, he prides himself on playing through things. He prides himself on being available. He's a really, really tough dude. He is just built different. And I know we talk about so many guys who, they're unavailable. Best ability is availability, but some of these guys, we're talking about, and Dalton Kincaid has been not as available as you wanted. And yesterday was some news, by the way. The Bills are most likely going to pick up his fifth-year option, and then people are like, wait a minute, you're risking that because he hasn't been available. That's how you have to talk about these people. That's the one thing that doesn't come up with Josh Allen ever. That he's always available. He's always playing through things, whether it's a shoulder or a knee, in this case a foot, whatever it is. And you're right, it just kind of underscores what he was actually playing through during those weeks. And you just wonder, would anything have been different in any of these games? I don't want to go pick apart and look at it and say, well, maybe he would they have run him more? You know what I mean? Would there have been a 3rd and 2 where he basically takes off and you run more of a bootleg or something like that? I don't know. But that being said, the good news is Josh Allen is going to be available for everything this offseason. He says it's not going to be a problem with anything this offseason as far as his preparation, workouts, things like that. And, he's going to be a father, and he talked about that as well, and that's a big part of his offseason here. So he's got rehab to do, obviously. He's waiting to become a dad, obviously, and he said everything should line up for him to be ready for anything they do in the offseason.
Yeah, I also don't want to pick apart single plays, but something that he said yesterday, and I don't have the quote, but I think you'll stop me if I get the spirit of the thing wrong here. But talking about how he goes over plays that he could have made that could have been different, and one thing that he said was on a given throw, if I'd been better with my feet or done something different with my feet, and that made me think of the Knox play at the end of regulation.
Yep.
Right. I don't know. I haven't gone back to look at it. I'm not, I don't know, it almost feels ghoulish at this point because what's the point? Right. But you just wonder if he'd had, if he'd been maybe feeling 100%, maybe that throws a different outcome. But anyway,
listen, I agree with you. And I'll go right back to that Cleveland game. I mean, right away, right after the injury happened, he comes out in the second half. There were a couple throws early in the second half that you could, to me, there was a far side overshot somebody. I can't remember, maybe Cooks. And then there was another one where he kind of, was off target. And I think right away you started to see that impacting him because of the foot. And I agree that could have been an issue later on too.
Sal, I know you did the extra point today. I imagine you talked about Alex Tuck and the Sabres and his comment last night in the room about trying to win the cup or going for the cup or not just trying to squeeze into the playoffs. I mean, you're not as old as me, but I mean, you've been here through all of this. You've been working here through all of this. And I just, seeing that last night, I couldn't get enough of it. It's just so great to have them playing like this and it not being like some little pocket inside a lost season that's too little too late. Like, they are one of the best teams in the league, I think, at this point.
It's
Go ahead.
unbelievable. I mean, listen, and you're right. I did. I mean, I grew up here. I went through all this, and you're right. I don't know if you realize, Bulldog, I moved back to Buffalo just a few months after their last playoff appearance. Like, literally, I moved back, and then the next year is when the drought started. And I've been back here since. And, yeah, I flew up from Florida to go to a Cup game in 99, but I've not seen them in the playoffs since I've been back to Buffalo. I have a 12-year-old son. Do the math.
Right.
He's not made the playoffs in his lifetime, right? I mean, like, we love going to games. We were at the Canadians game a couple weeks ago, and he even commented to me something about how, like, more intense it is. I'm like, this is what it's going to be like. We love this. Let's do this, right? And I love it for him. I love it for that. And for the fact of Alex Tuck to say what he said, two things. Number one is it wasn't just that he said it. If you watch the video, there's just so much conviction in him, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's part of it, too. He's not just saying it to be like, oh, yeah, we want to win the Cup. Like, he's really serious and convicted in what he's saying. And, I mean, the seriousness that he's talking about, that's got to resonate in that room. It has to resonate. He's saying, I'm going to lead. You're following, and we're all a part of this, and we're doing this. And the other part is exactly what you said, and I said this today on the Extra Point Show because I did talk about it, which is there's no possible way he's getting traded. I don't care if he has a deal, not a deal. I don't care if they're I don't care if they're $10 million apart. He's not getting traded. They're going to keep him. They'll figure it out. And if he winds up walking as a free agent, you live with it. You deal with it. You broke the drought. Let's do it.
That's exactly right. When I saw that last night, I tweeted that right away last night at like 10:15, 10:30, whatever time that would have been after the game. I'm like, that guy can't get traded now. And like, I don't think that's why he's doing it. And I don't know. It also made me think maybe a contract extension is, it's in the wind out there. Like, maybe because he certainly didn't sound like someone eager to leave or that is thinking at all about leaving to talk like that. So maybe they'll get something done here sooner rather than later. We'll see. All right.
No doubt. And I have to tell you, I think about this from all these guys. How many times have we been down this road, not just with free agents, but guys who just say, I don't want to be a part of this anymore. Like, I just think the next few months is such a franchise altering period because of all these guys and what we've seen in the past. And guys say, I don't want to be a part of a rebuild. I want out of here. Name the name, right? We've been down this road before. You keep this up for the next 2 months, that's done. We are done with it. Put it in the garbage. We're moving forward. Darlene, it doesn't matter. Everybody, and I think that's what's super cool.
Beautiful job, Sal. Thank you very much for this, and have yourself a great weekend.
You got it. And while I was on with you, and over the last 5 minutes, I can confirm Jeff Rogers will be the Bills' new special teams coach coming over from Arizona. I know there's reports out there, but just so you know, I can confirm that is to be the case.
All right, very good. Thank you for that, Sal. Sal Capaccio on the West Her Hotline. His appearance is brought to you by New York's only outlet liquor. When you need to stock up, it's the place to buy a case. We'll hit a timeout here. Zach will have an update for you. And then our buddy Connor Rogers on the Jets and really the NFL offseason. I want to pick Connor's brain about how he thought, what he thought of the way the Bills season ended and the coaching change and all of that. He's also been watching the Senior Bowl workouts, and so we'll get a little taste of that with Connor Rogers, a semi-regular guest on the show, big Rangers fan too. Look, I'm not going to talk any trash, but they're in last place. Anyway, Connor Rogers right after this. I am the Bulldog. Mike Schopp is away today. This is WGR.
More staff hirings for the Buffalo Bills. At offensive coordinator, Pete Carmichael Jr., who was the offensive coordinator under Sean Payton in New Orleans from 2009 to 2023. He also, for the last 2 years, has been in Denver with Payton as a senior offensive assistant. And then for special teams coordinator, they are bringing in Jeff Rodgers. Rodgers served in the same role for the Arizona Cardinals since 2019. Around the rest of the league, a bit of a surprise out in Minnesota as the Vikings are firing general manager Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah after 4 seasons on the job. The Vikings did announce, though, that Executive Vice President of Football Operations Rob Brzezinski is going to lead the front office through the 2026 draft. And then we do have an offensive coordinator hiring over in the over in the AFC. The Ravens are bringing in Bears offensive coordinator Declan Doyle to serve in the same role. They can do this as Doyle is going to be calling plays in Baltimore, a responsibility he did not have in Chicago. And then Tom Pelissero is reporting that the NFL informed clubs today the projected 2026 salary cap is in the range of $301.2 million to $305.7 million per club. And for context, this year it was $279.2 million. No Sabres game tonight. They're back in action tomorrow when they host Montreal. Tonight, though, a very limited schedule. Just one game across the entire league. It's at 8:30. Chicago hosts Columbus. Then in college hoops, Niagara, they host Siena just after 6:30. Pregame will get underway at 6:10, and both can be heard over on AM 1400. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of being your hometown dealership. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
Putting together a staff of the right people and surrounding them with different personalities, different ideas, different viewpoints. I don't want a lot of guys that just think like me. And it's important that every person that we put together on the staff, you then sit there and reevaluate what else do we need with that. And so I'm in the process of doing it with Bean, and I'm excited about the staff that we're going to put together for our players.
That is new Bills head coach Joe Brady talking during yesterday's news conference, or the little media availability he did afterward. I can't really discern which of the two appearances it was, but nonetheless talking about rounding out the coaching staff, or filling up the coaching staff here as he begins after taking over for Sean McDermott. Glad to welcome in here now on the West Her Hotline our buddy Connor Rogers. I misspoke at the end of the last segment when I mentioned that the Rangers are last in the East, but they're not last in the entire NHL. There are a few teams below them: Winnipeg, St. Louis, Vancouver, and Calgary, all behind the Rangers. Connor, I'm sorry. You want to know what it's like to live in a town where the team has won 20 of their last 24 games? Because that's where we're living right now.
Oh, man, I miss that, guys. It's amazing how quickly you go from winning the President's Trophy into full tanking lottery mode in this league. So I'm used to it with the Jets, so I'm prone to these kinds of seasons, although not as used to them with the Rangers. I'm on McKenna watch now, how quickly and how sadly a hockey season falls apart.
It can go, or turn around on a dime and turn you into one of the best teams in the league, because that's where the Sabres were not. The Sabres were living with the Rangers for the first 2 months of the season, and lo and behold, here we are. So how's life, man? How'd the football season treat you?
Oh, man. Well, like I said, with the Jets, it's always a little bit tough. But, I'm glad to see the Sabres getting out of this so the Jets can individually hold that playoff drought instead of saying, well, when the hockey season starts, the Sabres will take it back over. No, it's time for the Jets to distinguish themselves and hold this to themselves. But now we're on to the draft season and the off season, and you guys are experiencing how crazy the coaching searches are. Even if you end up hiring a guy that was already in your building, filling out a staff is really nuts. So I love this year just as much as the actual regular season, because I think there's so much theater and drama to it leading all the way up to the NFL draft.
For sure. We'll get to the Jets here as part of our visit. But I just want to ask you for your view of how the Bills' season ended and the move to dismiss McDermott and ultimately land on Joe Brady. Like, what's your overall takeaway on all that?
At first, really surprised, because I thought if it was going to happen, I had just wrongfully assumed that they kind of clean the slate and Bean would obviously go with McDermott. Although down in New York, we've experienced a very similar thing as Joe Shane, who came from Buffalo, ultimately survived the Giants moving on from Brian Daboll, and he's, at least for now, here with the Harbaugh situation. Mm-hmm. So I was a little surprised Buffalo went down that road, especially with how much McDermott meant to Buffalo, specifically to him, the state he was able to pull the organization out of, and along with Josh Allen, consistently turn them into a winner and a Super Bowl contender. And it's just tough when the stakes are raised that high that all of a sudden the expectations every year are to make a Super Bowl or else it's considered a failure. And I think McDermott, maybe it's not going to be this year, but next year he'd be the top head coach in the cycle and he'll get another crack at this thing. I think he's a hell of a football coach. For the Bills, I see it both ways. I think that it's okay to understand a guy like in New York here, the Knicks just did this with Tom Thibodeau. Right. Thibodeau's a really good basketball coach, but how do you find yourself to get over the hump of turning around a team that's in the basement? Well, now that combo is different. Now it's about winning a championship. And some coaches are really good getting you from the basement, to at least the ground floor and beyond, but that coach doesn't mean it's your championship coach. But I'm a little surprised that Bean, who's had a lot of roster miscues, in my opinion, how closely I follow the draft, is the guy still making the decisions, because I think the Bills were a really good football team. They have an all-world quarterback, but some of the shortcomings on this roster have been very obvious to me over the last 2 years, and he's simply failed to address them.
Yeah, it's really interesting the way it unfolded here, Connor, because I picked up very early this season the first signs ever of Bean and McDermott not being, alignment was the big buzzword at the news conference yesterday introducing Brady. And this year there were cracks in that. McDermott would drop just subtle comments during news conferences about different things. And it even got not so subtle towards the end when they were getting ready to play Jacksonville in the wild card round.
Jacoby Myers.
He couldn't stop glowing about Jacoby Myers. And we all thought, man, is he just firing punches at Bean here? It just really felt that way. And I think the undercurrent of all this, sure, I can buy, 9 years and, repeated hitting your head on the same playoff ceiling and you need to make a change. But I think there was more behind this than just we can't get over the hump. I think they grew apart. And Pagula picked a side, and he picked Bean. I was surprised. I thought if push came to shove and he had to pick one or the other, he would keep McDermott and go shopping for a new GM. But he chose the other. What do you think of Joe Brady as the hire?
Yeah, I think you nailed it there, where maybe we should have been a little bit more aware of something going on where it was kind of reaching a boiling point. And as Sims and I always say on our show, at NBC, people forget that these GMs spend so much time with the owners that maybe they have the power to point out what's wrong from their point of view, but the coaches in the craziness of a football season don't get to do that to the owners, and the pendulum starts to swing one way, and that's where these coaches find themselves in a much more dangerous spot, and that's why it took so long for John Harbaugh to get his contract done with the Giants, because he needs everything set up his way that kind of situation doesn't unfold. And that brings us to Joe Brady, which is – it's in no way a bad hire. I'd call it underwhelming at face value, because everybody loves the unknown, right? There was the rumors of Udinsky, the offensive coordinator from the Jaguars, and he's 30 years old, and what can he be? And can he unlock Josh Allen to these new great heights? And that was Joe Brady a couple years ago. He was a part of that Joe Burrow LSU offense. He had a lot of, hype and clout when he got the Panthers offensive coordinator job, and it took him a little while to get his feet fully under him, and it feels like now his ability to develop the run game, I think, is in a really, really good place. How he's going to fare as a head coach is going to be interesting. I think it's going to be far from a disaster. I think the most important thing that's giving me optimism right now is I'm excited about the potential hires on the defensive side of the ball, because I know Joe Brady can coach offense. I know he can get through to Josh Allen. It's clear Josh Allen, rightfully so, was in this process and a huge voice in this process that probably advocated for Joe Brady. But now, can you go land Jim Leonard to run your defense? Can you go get Jim Schwartz after things blew up in Cleveland? And Sean McDermott, the stuff he was doing on the back end of the defense with the different coverages and, that we watch every week, he's up there with the really, really good ones. I understand the front fell apart. They weren't good against the run, but their secondary and their ability to change coverages and confuse quarterbacks is up there with anyone in the league. But now, can you go get Jim Schwartz and maybe create some more havoc up front? Jim Leonard is another guy with his long background as a safety and a high-end defensive coordinator at the college level before coaching for the Broncos. He's another guy that can keep your secondary together, and hopefully the talent will be better up front that changes. So if they get that hire right, you start to feel really, really good about the direction of this team going forward after the surprise move of moving on from McDermott.
NBC Sports and SNY's Connor Rogers on the West Her Hotline with us for a couple of more minutes. How about the Jets then? It seemed very apparent from here that, I mean, we saw the Jets in Week 18. Week 17 was kind of the same thing. Like, that team just was not competing at all for Aaron Glenn. Are you surprised that they stuck it out even though it was just the first year?
Honestly, not surprised, but it doesn't mean I agree with the process of it. And here's why. When you hear that there's 4 years north of $40 million left on this deal and that Woody Johnson ultimately is not ready to cut his losses and move on from that deal and enter this coaching cycle where there was 10 other jobs where the Jets would have been very low down the list of being one of the priority jobs, you could argue that it's not surprising because it comes down to money and it comes down to optics and perception. And I've known you guys for a long time. I've been coming on WGR for how many years now? And it's just a crazy thing to say. I don't think the Jets have ever been this rudderless in that time. And that's, think of the bars we're having to clear here. It's so low. And this to me feels like an absolute mess right now. It feels like Aaron Glenn was, given the green light to run a defensive coordinator search and then wanted Wink Martindale, and out of nowhere they don't get a deal done with Wink Martindale, and Aaron Glenn's calling the defensive plays. Tanner Engstrand was supposed to be back, and then at the end of January they have a mutual parting of ways, so that was a surprise. So what happened there? Nobody seems to be aligned and on the same page right now, and I don't know if that's an ownership and head coach problem, but it's hard to feel optimistic about the future of Aaron Glenn when you just saw that product on the field combined with the fact that nobody seems aligned in that building, in my opinion. Maybe some will disagree with that, but that's my opinion, and I've been covering and around the Jets long enough, I think, to have a good feel for those things and their shortcomings, that the most obvious way this ends is that the Jets just aren't good enough next year. They're looking for a head coach, hopefully in a cycle with less than 10 teams looking for a new head coach. That could benefit them. 3 first-rounders in 2027. But, man, Bulldog, you hate to sit here in January and want to be simulating and fast-forwarding another NFL season. That's a bad place to be for an organization.
That is very, very tough. Quickly, Chiefs and Ravens, do you think they both bounce back, one or the other or neither? Like, what do you think? A couple of lost seasons for them, big injury, obviously, with Mahomes. Do you think they'll be right back where they've been at the top of the AFC?
The Ravens I'm really bullish on because I'm such a fan of Jesse Minter. He is just one of the brightest defensive minds in the game. Would I be shocked if he becomes the Mike McDonald of the AFC? No, I wouldn't be shocked at all. Now, what is it going to look like on the offensive side of the ball? Is Lamar Jackson going to be locked in and healthy? And they're going to have a contract situation to figure out with him in the near future. When Lamar is playing at a near MVP caliber level, we know that team can go anywhere, and the defense is going to be back to where it needs to be under Minter. So and they have the infrastructure in the scouting department that they'll pick good players, they'll sign good players, the roster will be in the right place. So I think the Ravens are going to be A-okay, and it was just kind of time for both sides with them and Harbaugh to move on. The Chiefs is a trickier one because they've been declining in a lot of different areas. Matt Nagy was not, viable as an offensive coordinator, so they let his contract run out. And Bieniemy is an interesting figure in the NFL, but he might be the right figure for that team where he brings in a kind of a different edge than Andy Reid and kind of gets, lights a fire under guys. And I just don't love the roster. That's my problem with the Chiefs. I think Mahomes is as good as anybody when he's on. That's not saying much. Will they have a little bit better health luck next year? But I don't love how Veach has let this roster go over the years. And guess what? You're in a division with the Chargers and the Broncos, and the Raiders will be better next year. They won't be good, but they'll be better. So very bullish on the Ravens' return. The Chiefs is a big wait and see because they got a lot of work to do.
Before we let you go, I know you're not in Mobile or you weren't in Mobile for the workouts, but you've been paying attention. A couple of names, and if there's any emphasis on receiver, because I think you know the reputation of the station here, we're always talking about wide receivers here in Buffalo and upgrading that talent. Who's standing out to you from what you've seen on video from Mobile?
Yeah, so I've had the tape of the practices. The travel did not go so well for me Monday, getting down there, shocking with the kind of storm that we had in New York here, which was just insane. But, I think Bills fans will be excited to hear the receiving talent has had a good couple days there. You look at the story of the wide receiver group has been Tyron Montgomery, who's a wide receiver from John Carroll University that has looked like one of the guys there. And that's really saying a lot when you go up multiple levels. Forget going up from D3, D2 football, or even FCS football to D1 level guys. But a lot of the guys there are high-level players from Division I football. So when you not only hang with the big dogs like that, but you look like one of the guys, that's great for Tyron Montgomery. On the other side, a name that I'm sure a lot of Bills fans already know, but I've been a big fan of for a while, Malachi Fields, the big wide receiver from Notre Dame. He's just got these long build-up strides, can track the ball, finish plays for his quarterback down the field. These guys aren't going to be first-round wide receivers. I don't think there's a lot of guys that'll go in the first round from the Senior Bowl this year, but they can go on day 2 or day 3 and be impact players right away.
Connor, appreciate the time so very much as always. I wish we had a little bit more of it. Sorry about the Rangers. Please say hello to everyone at the Star Bar for my wife and I.
Oh, absolutely. So good to catch up with you, man, and let's do it again soon.
All right, man. Be cool. Connor Rogers, SNY, NBC Sports. For those who don't know, the last time I was in New York City with my family, my wife, being the dive bar aficionado that she is, wanted such. And I asked, and Connor answered, and he suggested a place, and we loved it. She loved it. What level of dive bar are we talking about? The chalkboard had the food menu on it. It consisted of Pop-Tarts and Cheez-Its. That's my kind of joint, people. And that's Connor Rogers for you. All right, we'll hit a timeout here. We'll get back into some hockey at the top of the hour. Travis Yost from TSN will be on with us. No one better to ask just how sticky this Sabres run is. So stay tuned for that. Very excited to have Travis on today. I'm the Bulldog. Mike Schopp is away today. This is WGR. Here I thought I had been doing a pretty good job of, telling time today, but I've left myself no time here. So my apologies. Hope you enjoyed the conversations with Connor Rogers and Sal during this past hour. We'll hit up another quick break here. Again, my apologies. Want to make sure we leave plenty of time for one of our very favorites, Travis Yost from TSN. I cannot think of a better person to ask for an opinion about just how sticky this run the Sabres have been on is. So Travis will join us for that, and I'm sure he'll have some thoughts on how the Bills have handled their business since the season ended with the removal of McDermott and the appointment of Joe Brady as head coach. Travis, in addition to being one of the best hockey analysts we know, is also a mighty huge Bills fan. So Travis Yost from TSN right after this. Mike is away today. I'm the Bulldog, and this is WGR.
More staff hirings for the Buffalo Bills as Joe Brady begins to build out his version of the Buffalo Bills. He does get his offensive coordinator today. Pete Carmichael Jr. is going to be the offensive coordinator, and he served in that same role under Sean Payton in New Orleans from 2009 to 2023. The past 2 years, he has been a senior offensive assistant, staying with Payton on Denver. And then for special teams coordinator, the team is bringing in Jeff Rodgers, who served in that same role for the Arizona Cardinals since 2019. We're still waiting for official word from the Bills, but our own Sal Capaccio is reporting that both of these hirings are in fact happening. Around the rest of the league, a bit of a surprise out in Minnesota. The Vikings are firing general manager Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah after 4 seasons on the job. And with this, the Vikings did announce that Executive Vice President of Football Operations, Rob Brzezinski, is going to lead the front office through the 2026 draft. Some coach hirings today. The Ravens bringing in Bears offensive coordinator Declan Doyle. He's going to serve with the same role in Baltimore, and the Ravens can do this as Doyle will be calling plays for them, a responsibility he did not have in Chicago. And then some salary cap news. Tom Pelissero reporting the NFL informed clubs today it is projecting a 2026 salary cap in the range of $301.2 million and $305.7 million per club. For context, this year it was $279.2 million. To the Sabres, no game tonight, though they have won 5 in a row, and they're back in action tomorrow when they host Montreal, a team they've already beat twice this month. Game time tomorrow is at 7 right here on WGR. Around the rest of the league, though, just one game for the entire night. 8:30, Chicago hosts Columbus. And in college hoops, Niagara, they host Siena just after 6:30. Pregame will get underway at 6:10, and you can listen to both over on AM 1400. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of being your hometown dealership. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
It's Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
They have this Panther sound effect that is just the cheesiest, stupidest sounding thing. Big voice guy going, Panther goal scored by Sam Reinhart.
Where'd you get that thing? I trapped it. Been keeping it in my bathroom at the motel, feeding it old pizza.
It's Mike Schopp.
If you're calm, that wondrous big cat will be calm too. But if you're scared, that beautiful death machine will do what God made it to do, namely, eat you with a smile on its face.
And the Bulldog. On WGR Sports Radio 550.
It's not really a lot to say that may be my finest work. I mean, not exactly something to put on a tombstone, if you know what I mean. But we work with what we have. I am the Bulldog. Mike Schopp is away today. Very, very pleased to welcome in on the West Her Hotline our buddy from TSN, one of the finest hockey analysts in all the land. He is Travis Yost. Travis, good afternoon. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing good. I feel like you and your Sabres are doing a little better these days, though, huh?
Well, you could say that. Yeah, 23-1 through the last 24 games. I saw a graphic today that it's the 5th best. It's a pretty funny thing, a 24-game run, but whatever. It's the 5th best record through any pocket of 24 games in an NHL season. I mean, they're on a list with like the 1932 Bruins or something here, which is just bonkers.
Bulldog, you know how good the Sabres are right now? National article on Monday from this man, Travis Yost, will be about the Buffalo Sabres, also sharing a little space with the Utah Mammoth, who little run of their own out in the West. But, yeah, the Sabres getting some national Canadian spotlight, as they deserve.
Well, they did drub Toronto on Tuesday night, so it's perhaps warranted and top of mind. Well, I thought no person better to ask than you. How sticky is this, Travis? We've seen win streaks come and go. A 10-game win streak back in, I think it was 17 or 18. But there was a lot of overtime and shootout luck and and we know how that turned out. It was just another log on the 14-year playoff drought fire. How sticky is this Sabre team right now in their results?
Before I answer, and I've got a good response, I got to ask you one question on that. How, on a 1 to 10 scale, how furious are you that they now have a 20-day Olympic break right around the corner?
Dude, yeah, not pleased. All right, not pleased. I'll even less pleased if something happens to somebody over there. Luukkonen's already down. I mean, we don't know if he's going to be out long enough to miss the entire Olympics or what. The timing is about as bad as it could be, I think.
Well, I'll tell you what. I've been doing this a long time, and I've got a cemetery of really horrendous takes that would take me years and years to go through. But I'll tell you which take has aged pretty well. Last time I was on with you guys, I was joking with Mike about this earlier in the week. I think the question was something to the effect of like, what are you more optimistic about, the Bills or the Sabres? And the Bills, the most winning franchise, I think, regular season the last 6 years. The Sabres, just a persistent futility and always a disaster, dumpster fire. And I kind of made the point, now granted I had PTSD from the Texans game, I kind of made the point that, like, I actually thought the Sabres were pretty well positioned, and this is before they went on this blistering white-hot run. And, I could have never foreseen how hot this team would get. But this, I would argue this has been building in some degree. This has been building for some time. I mean, for the last couple of seasons, certainly when we're talking with you guys, you see – even when the Sabres weren't stringing wins together, they've been such a more competitive 5-on-5 team over the last couple of years. And even when they were losing, you could tie almost all of it to either defensive breakdowns or really just shoddy goaltending, much more the latter. And I think we even talked last summer heading into the season about, like, well, what does this season look like? And I'm like, look, I'm still super bullish on the talent. I went back and I actually cited this article in the one that's coming up on Monday. I went back and I do, every summer I do the talent tiers. I grade every position, every depth chart of all the 32 teams. And I had Buffalo's blue line as one of the best blue lines in the league, and they graded pretty well elsewhere. And people are like, generally speaking, like, you're way too hot on the Sabres. And I'm like, this is a good team. There's a lot of talent around this. And what they may lack in real top-end talent, they clearly make up for in depth competency, which, by the way, the connective tissue with them and the Mammoth. But the 900-pound, girl in the room was always, what sort of goaltending are they going to get? And I think you asked the question of, like, what do you know about Alex Lyon? And I'm like, he's a journeyman goalie. You may get a great year. You may get an underperforming year. But I think that's an important distinction. Clearly the skaters have played net better than even the last couple of years when they've been pretty decent, especially offensively. But the goaltending has come along on this ride, right? Alex Lyon's been one of the better goalies in the league. And even UPL's turned it around from the first month or so of the season. And I was ruminating over Alex Tuck's comments. I don't know if you caught him last night.
Dude, I opened the show talking about him. Like,
that's a great – I love that. To me, what do you want to get lost in the sauce of, like, is this a Stanley Cup contender? I think the more, like, if I'm a Sabres fan, the comforting part is, are they a playoff team? The answer to me is unequivocally yes. We are past the halfway mark of the season. By the way, they still have $3 million of cap space heading into the trade deadline, it should be noted. And they're, top 6, top 7 in the league in goal differential? I mean, their season to date is pretty comparable with Carolina. Tampa Bay, I think, has been the class so far in the Eastern Conference. But, like, if you're comparable with the Carolina Hurricanes through 50, 55 games, I think that makes you an unequivocal playoff contending team, right? And so, like, yes, can they keep stringing together a white-hot run like this through the rest of the season? Of course not. No one expects them to. But should they win more games on average than they lose the rest of the way? Smart money and the base case is the answer is yes. And to me, like, it's more of a question of, like, why shouldn't this team finish top 3 in the Atlantic rather than, and I know it's there's a tremendous race for that 3 spot. There's always a risk.
Nobody wants to lose, Travis.
No one's losing in that except the Maple Leafs, which another theme we talked about, by the way. But I think the question is the Sabres are a playoff team in my eyes. I think that's pretty clear. I think they're like 75% to make it already. The question is, how do you ensure that you get into that 3 spot, or the 2 or 3 spot in the Atlantic Division? You never really want to be a wild card team in any sport. And in the NHL, wild card teams have a better chance of advancing. But if that means like a 7-round matchup in the first round with Tampa Bay, yeah, I'm probably not super hot on that. But can the Sabres beat most of the teams in the Eastern Conference? My answer is yes, and it was a month ago, it was 2 months ago, and it still is today.
Yeah, I love the decor and like being high on them because I think if there's anything through this stretch that would qualify as a superpower for this team, it's their top 4D and how they've been playing. And they're getting by with like Metza, and now Kesselring is back, and it was Jacob Bryson, on the third pair, but they were really leaning on those top 4. All of them were playing over 20 minutes, have been playing over 20 minutes a night, and we'll see if that can stabilize here as we get into, the post-Olympic break. But those top 4D, I mean, I know that we're living in a world where defensemen are all over the ice and below the goal line, and like lots of teams do it. But it feels like watching them night in, night out, that those 4D are the thing on this team, I think.
No, unequivocally agree. Thought it in August, and like this is always like a lot of things change in the NHL. One thing that really hasn't changed is if you don't have supernovas at the top of the lineup, and I mean real supernovas, I'm talking McDavid, McKinnon, if you don't have a handful of those guys around the league, then your real path to contention is being able to roll at least 3 lines and ideally 3 defensive pairings, whatever that fourth forward line looks like. I think it's a little more gray, but that's what the Sabres have. I mean, there are very few, I would say, bona fide weaknesses across this lineup. And by the way, one thing that even someone, I was pretty bullish on the outlook of this team, at least in terms of like, can they make the playoffs this year? One thing I didn't foresee is they're really getting outperformance from guys who I didn't even, spend a waking second even thinking about. You brought up Zach Metza. Do you know what the Sabres are doing with him on the ice? I think he's played like 20, 25 games this year. Do you know what they're doing with him on the ice 5-on-5?
I don't.
They have outscored the opponents 16-2 with him on the ice, which is unfathomable for a call-up making whatever his entry-level contract money. I mean, those are the type of numbers you see from top tier defensemen. And yeah, some of it's a little shooting percentage and save percentage driven, and it'll regress back to some degree of normality. But like, they just keep finding pockets of influence further down the lineup. And by the way, when I say like they don't have a supernova, that's not to diminish guys like Thompson and Tuck who are fantastic at the top of the lineup. It's just if you're not confident that your top line, your top pairing can persistently drive a 60% goal share over the course of the year, which by the way is extremely high bar to clear, then you really need the rest of the team to pull their proverbial weight, and that's what the Sabres are getting right now.
The mighty Travis Yost from TSN here on the Wester Hotline. I am the Bulldog. Mike is away today. I'd love to hear you talk about Owen Power. This is a player that has been, through his NHL career, I mean, the Sabres results have been terrible, and he's got the curse of being a big guy who does not play like a big guy. But he is definitely a part of what I'm talking about with this superpower. I mean, the puck moving and the breakouts and the offensive zone, I think he's been, to my eyes, fantastic. I'd love to hear you riff on just what Owen Power has become. It's funny, the production is way off. I just noticed maybe last night or the game before, like he wasn't even anchoring the number 2 power play anymore because you know what? Despite having done it for like 50 games this year, you know how many power play points he has? 0. Which is incredible, right? But just overall power, because there's a lot of fans out there that just completely are never going to buy it because of what I said at the outset here, that he's the big guy and doesn't play big, and he's got his defensive shortcomings, sure, but just what do you see from Owen Power?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think this has necessarily been his best year, but I think it's been one of his toughest years, and I say that in a complimentary way, which is he's had to shoulder a lot of workload on an otherwise relatively deep blue line. I mean, with the horrific, 3-month stretch here that Rasmus Dahlin and his family have been going through, and a defense that's really evolving around that top pair. The one thing the Sabres have done, and I think this kind of speaks a little bit to the production, he plays some of the toughest minutes. He might play the toughest minutes across the entire Sabres lineup. And, yeah, he's a big body, but he's not a super physical guy. But I also see, like, it's right what you said at the top, which is, everyone wants this, like, 6'7", 240 hulking guy who's going to blow you through the boards, but in the same time can pass like Prime Erik Karlsson and skate like him too. And it's like, these guys are unicorns. They don't really. Kel McCarr was created in a lab. He doesn't just exist on every one of these teams. But having the size and being able to play within that size and having an offensive skill set and a toolbox that can kind of complement that size, that's exactly what you look for in the modern day defenseman, and I think he's kind of found his niche as like, in one respect, I think the coaching staff, the Sabres, see it as, hey, when we're in those tough minutes, when we're up against a top line, one of the better teams in the Eastern Conference, especially when we're entering the playoffs, like Power's going to be eating up a lot of those minutes because I want Dahlin to cook maybe in some of those softer minutes, moving the puck up ice, sustaining offensive zone pressure, driving the offense from the back end. It's not to say that Power doesn't do that, but I think Power's role is becoming increasingly more defined as, hey, we just need you to break even because the rest of the team is actually net much better than where you were 2-3 years ago. And by the way, I think there's a beautiful harmony in that, right? Like it creates expectations with the player, and I think it speaks to a large degree. Yeah, would you like to see more points? Would you like to see a better 5-on-5 goal differential? Of course, you always want that, but context matters in this sport, no different than anything else. And when he's on the ice, it's a lot of defensive zone-oriented minutes. It's a lot of tough top six competition, and I think he's done a pretty good job so far this year, to be honest.
How about I'm going to run through the whole decor, I think, perhaps, if time allows. Matthias Samuelsson, Travis, I don't know how closely you would have been paying attention last year when, I don't remember if it was February or March, when Tage Thompson got trucked by New Jersey. And Samuelsson was one of the people on the ice that did not seem to notice, even though the linesmen were chasing the Devils player around. There was no reaction. And from that and just, the results being bad, he became a guy that was just get him off the team, buy him out. And I'm not saying like lunatic fringe unless I'm the lunatic fringe, because I was there with everyone. Like, I don't know what's the value of this guy. He's not that fleet of foot. He's not that offensively productive. He's not mean. It's a nothing burger. This year, I mean, he's scoring like a maniac. He hasn't had this many points in a season since he was like 12 years old. I'm not kidding. And he's also wrecking dudes. Like, what kind of light bulb went off there? I mean, I can you explain the turnaround in his game?
Yeah, I mean, I think you could apportion this a bunch of different ways. I don't remember the exact play you referenced last year, but I very much remember the let's get him out of town and, hey, look, this guy's numbers are absolutely awful. He would be, and I mean this league-wide, this is not hyperbole, like league-wide, he would be one of the 4 presidents on Mount Rushmore of year over year. How do you explain this type of turnaround? I mean, I think he's 2 points shy of where Jack Quinn is. We're talking about a guy with 30-plus points halfway through the season, and he's not known for any offensive touch. I think you hit the nail on the head on one respect, though, which is what I see from him this year versus last year. And it's easy to attribute this to coaching. Maybe it's true. Maybe it's not. Maybe the player deserves more credit. If you said, hey, in his exit interview last April, the coaching staff got in front of him and said, we need you to play more physically, especially if you're going to be playing in the top 4, especially if you're going to be playing with a Rasmus Dahlin type who really is going to have the puck on his stick a tremendous amount of time. And, yes, of course, these pairings always change, but you will never play in this lineup in this position long term if we cannot get some more physicality out of you. Whatever it was, I'd like to think that was the logical explanation, but he is certainly playing with more physicality. And the offensive touch, by the way, the offensive scoring, I think is indicative. It's the sum of the parts issue, right? Like, he's got a very defined role. And by the way, when you're the lesser of the two on a defensive pairing, but you're playing with a very cohesive, very dominant 5-man unit, he almost always plays with the Sabres top 6. He regularly plays with Dahlin. Like, it's a rising tide lifts all boats scenario. And that's not to discredit Samuelsson. It's more so, playing environment matters a lot in this sport. And I would say it's one of the most underrated. And, we talk about it a lot as like line chemistry or pairing chemistry. But like playing with talent matters a ton. Playing without talent also matters a ton. A lot of guys who have been, historically great performers around the league who have underperforming years, one of the first things I look at, 17 years and counting running is, well, what was their playing environment like? Who are they playing with regularly? Who's on their defensive pair? What forwards are they playing with? And I think he's got the right mix. I think he's brought a physical tone to the game this year. And, I mean, if you look at it by the way, this was like an early, like, oh yeah, it's a cool October story. Even when the Sabres were struggling a bit early in the year, Samuelsson was outperforming. I mean, they're 20 goals better than their opponents 5-on-5 this year with him on the ice. That's a remarkable number. And yes, that is a 5-on-5. It is an on-ice number. He's just a slice of that pie. But when you have a missing link or a weakness, especially in your top 4, especially in your top 6, and you're playing good quality competition around the league, those guys are routinely exposed, right? And you see those numbers plummet, and that just hasn't been the case this year. And I think he deserves full kudos. I mean, like if you had a short list of like comeback player of the year, yeah. I mean, if you look at his numbers a year ago to this, it's almost hard to believe they're the same player, which I think is exactly your point.
I almost wonder if his dad, Shell, didn't have like a come to Jesus talk with him about it. Like, he played in the league a long time. Maybe he just like, kid, what are you doing? I don't know. Something happened.
I would be fascinated if one of the local guys gets there, and it's like to me, it's a good faith question too. It's like, look, the numbers are better, the team's better, we get all that, but like you individually look better. Like, what did you focus on this offseason? I think it's a fascinating question. I think and I bet he would give a good answer to that. I don't think he would just say, well, my on-ice shooting percentage is 12%. I think you hear a lot more than that.
Right. The last of the top 4, Byram, had been prior to this year, and I don't know how different it is. You tell me what the numbers are telling you. Like last year especially, like he with Dahlin, wow, look at them all over the ice, and then you take him away from Dahlin, and it was just like, oh my God, a disaster is happening. What are we doing? But he's a part of this too. What do the numbers tell you about him?
I would say a pretty similar story to Power. He's facing a little tougher competition this year. I think he's doing an adequate job. By the way, he's brought a goal-scoring touch this year.
Yep.
He's always been kind of the top 4, modern day, I can play both ways type defenseman, or that was certainly the idea when he was drafted and brought into the league, that he could develop into this player. But he's got 10 goals on the year. And, this is what I saw, just even going – and this is – by the way, and all this aside, right, Kesselring's been just injury-riddled most of the year. But when you look at this depth chart between Samuelsson having a massive outperformance here, Dahlin and Power being 2 absolute horses that you were betting on in a literal sense and also a financial sense. I think there's like $20 million tied up between just those 2 guys alone. I mean, the Sabres have put a lot of money into this blue line. It's not like this thing was just, farted into thin air. Like they bet on this group heavily. They were, most of these guys were blue chip prospects entering the league. And the Sabres have done a very good job developing them into a top 4. And it's why, Byram complements, especially playing with Power. Like, I think that unit, that duo, can alleviate a lot of the burden, especially from the Dahlin pairing, where, if you go back a few years ago, I think one thing that was clear as day to me, even when we were hyper bullish about Dahlin, and I think we even talked about this a few years ago, where Dahlin's numbers were really tailing off. And I think the one qualifying component to why Dahlin was quote unquote struggling, and I thought he was at the time, was he had no insulation around him. I mean, he was shouldering all of the offensive burden, getting blamed for a lot of the defensive mistakes and miscues. And quite frankly, they didn't have any depth behind his top pairing to be able to roll 3 pairings, ensure that you're keeping your shift length short, ensure that, you're managing minutes and any light injuries. Like, there's no way they could have done that. So the Sabres, whether they're smart or whether it was luck or a combination of the two, usually it's both, they invested heavily in this group, and Byram's been good, Power's been good, and the top pairing has been fantastic. It's why, as long as the Alex Lyons of the world in the Buffalo Sabres crease can just provide adequate goaltending, and I really mean that, adequate goaltending, this lineup, with maybe the exception, I don't even know how much I want to caveat that, with maybe the exception of a Tampa or Carolina, these legacy teams that are just as deep and maybe a slightly more talented on the top end, the Sabres and this defense and their top 6 should be able to compete with any team in the Eastern Conference. And it's, to me, that's kind of bringing this back full circle to the Tuck quote. Like, okay, he's super bullish about the Stanley, he's talking about the Stanley Cup. You love that hype. You want to run through a wall for it. But my takeaway was, he's kind of rounding up, because the actual number that he's looking at with the decimal point is, we already know we're a playoff team. And if I'm a Sabres fan amidst this 14-year drought, that's music to my ears.
Love it, love it, love it. There's so much more I wanted to get into and talk more about Tuck. You can't trade him now. I mean, I didn't think they were going to anyway. I think they'd more likely let it play out if they don't get a contract done with him. But now that he said that, I mean, that just cements it, because the optics of trading that guy would be horrific.
So I took two things from that quote, just like as an aside. Like, that's exactly what we want from a leader. A leader, air quotes, or literal leader in the sense. But also, like, I kind of took it as like a nod from Tuck to the front office. And you never know how negotiations are going, and I know they've probably been working on that. But I kind of took it as a nod. You can kind of guess what that quote really meant or if it meant anything at all. But one thing that I think stands out is, like, you don't say that unless you're committed. And athletes are not committed for, okay, I have a 2-month stretch run and then I can sign with Vegas. Like that. That's not how this guy is thinking. He's clearly thinking, like, I like where we're at. I like where this organization's at. And I want to say something that's so motivational and so uplifting that people know I'm committed here. That, to me, is a guy you want to invest in. And I could not disagree with your point. Trade deadline, that seems impossible for Mr. Tuck here.
Yeah, the first thing I tweeted as soon as I saw that last night, like, A, you can't trade him. B, I wonder if there's an extension in the wind, because a guy, he does not sound like a guy that's got a foot out the door, that's for sure. Travis, we're out of time. You got 30 seconds or a minute on the Bills?
Yeah, 30 seconds. Like I said in November, I'm a little more optimistic Sabres than the Bills. No, I don't know what to make of this whole ordeal. Like, we want massive change, but we're not really changing anything at all. It seems like it's just isolated to a McDermott issue, which, by the way, I think we're all going to be guessing at whether that was the right approach or not until the season actually picks up again. But one thing that is kind of clear to me as a takeaway from this is, if you're betting on change, but the only change you make is really at one position, right, head coach, and now you're letting Joe Brady fill in his staff, what you're really saying is the head coach was the problem. And I don't know how they're going to solve the overall talent issues unless they hit a home run around the draft, because I still think this is a extremely and disproportionately quarterback-driven team. I like to be hopeful that Joe Brady's got a different philosophy of things, and maybe McDermott was abrasive to that, but I think we're kind of whistling past the graveyard a little bit. You're trying to get excited about a new coach, but the core issues with the talent across this roster and a lot of the stuff they're going to have to do this offseason, I think, remain ahead of us right now.
Excellent work, Travis. Thank you so much for this. We'll keep an eye out, and I'll make sure to retweet and whatever, make sure our audience knows about the piece you mentioned on Monday on the Sabres.
Amen, brother. Take care.
All right, it's Travis Yost from TSN. Sounds pretty sticky to me what he had to say about the Sabres, I think, for sure. You want to talk about it? 803-0550. We got time for some phone calls if you're up for it. I am the Bulldog. Mike is away today. This is WGR.
More staff hirings for the Buffalo Bills following the introductory press conference of Joe Brady yesterday. Today, offensive coordinator going to be Pete Carmichael Jr. He was the OC under Sean Payton in New Orleans from 2009 to 2023. And then special teams coordinator. They're bringing in Jeff Rogers, who served in the same role for the Cardinals since 2019. None of this is official yet from the team, but our own Sal Capaccio is reporting that both of these hirings will be happening. Around the rest of the league, a bit of a surprise out in Minnesota. The Vikings are firing general manager Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah after 4 seasons on the job. The Vikings did announce executive vice president of football operations Rob Brzezinski is going to be leading the front office through the 2026 draft. And then some salary cap news. Tom Pelissero reporting the NFL informed clubs today it is projecting a 2026 salary cap in the range of $301.2 million to $305.7 million per team. For context, this year it was $279.2 million per team. Over to the Sabres, no game tonight. They have won 5 in a row, and they're right back at it tomorrow night when they host Montreal, a team they've already beaten twice this month. Game time tomorrow is at 7 right here on WGR. And then in college hoops tonight, Niagara, they host Siena just after 6:30 pregame, getting underway at 6:10. Both can be heard over on AM 1400. That's Paddock Chevrolet Sports Headlines. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of being your hometown dealership. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
I am the Bulldog. Mike Schopp has been off today. Zach Jones producing, our man G on the video content producing, monitoring the bullpen. Hello, bullpen. Sorry I haven't been dipping in bullpen. It's hard for me to keep track of everything on a day when Mike is here enough to even say hi to the bullpen, let alone follow along with the discourse. But it means... I don't want to say the world because that would be an overstatement and really disingenuous, but it means something. I guess I'm not really sure what, but I see you, I feel you, I appreciate you, bullpen. Thank you for being there for us day in and day out. It's both in the morning and in the afternoon. Is this awkward now? Did I make it? Did I make it weird? I made it weird. 803-0550 is the number. Sabres, I mean, did you enjoy that conversation with Travis? Right? Is it sticky? Like, he's telling you back in the fall he thought this team had this in them. I mean, to be a playoff team, end the drought. To be, like, he's lumping them in with Carolina. Contender status-wise, which is saying a lot. I mean, that's been year over year one of the very best teams in the league in the regular season. Yes, they have fallen flat in the playoffs, but the timing of that Travis Yost visit couldn't have been better because I know, just like anyone, you know, there's still that little voice, right? Like, is this real? Should I trust this? Is this really happening? But, I mean, 24 games, 23-1 is it's not a fluke. Like they're good. How good? Great even. We shall see. 803-0550 is the phone number if you'd like to get in on the conversation like Frank just did. Hi, Frank. Thanks for calling. You're on the air here on WGR.
Hey, Bulldog. Happy Friday.
Yeah, man. Same to you.
So I got one concern with Joe Brady's speech. I'm a little worried about how he said the players, this is really petty of me, but it's like I'm kind of worried about how the players can just be themselves now. I kind of like the idea that Sean McDermott did run a tight ship and kept the players on their P's and Q's and stuff, but I don't know. It might just be a little small complaint I have, but I just want to make sure that our players stay on the up and up this year. And also, what is your opinion on things to do with 20 games without the Sabres? And thank you.
Frank, yeah, good question. I don't know. Travis mentioned like the timing of this Olympic break could not be worse. I mean, hey, there's 4 games between now and then. Maybe we'll feel like we need a break if it doesn't go well. I mean, I'm just saying it could happen. You know, interesting. I noticed that yesterday, and I don't remember exactly how Brady addressed it. Or how and why it came up, but I know I got off of social media a few fans commenting that they like that the players will be allowed to be themselves. And maybe even it was maybe that's coming from the players. I don't even know. But I got to tell you, I thought one of McDermott, I know McDermott's personality is not, I mean, he was not as vibrant as Joe Brady. And that's an understatement. He was not as vibrant by a lot as Joe Brady. But I thought that it came across very often and in a way that to me was believable that one of McDermott's strongest traits as the Bills head coach was allowing guys to be themselves. He would talk about it occasionally, and I don't know that he was like this when he got here, but I think since they got good, right, that he wanted their personalities. He wanted them to be who they were. And like those, the guardrails can be deceptive on a thing like that, right? Because if your style of play and the way you approach the job is rigid, then maybe that's what we're talking about, and the players would feel that rigidity, and you know that it maybe could have a detrimental effect on the overall. But I always thought McDermott was very believable in wanting the guys to be themselves. I think he said as much. I feel like a number of times that as he went along in this job, that he recognized the importance of making sure guys told their stories to one another, and that is a part of what drew them so close. So I don't know. I don't feel like that is a big switch. Now, Brady might have certainly, I think he definitely has, I shouldn't say might, I think he definitely has a different kind of energy, and is certainly a younger man, much more youthful, and therefore maybe more in touch and understanding of what the players are into, what could be bothering them. So therefore a more relatable guy to the average NFL player. But I don't feel like this Bills team under McDermott was under some strict code of conduct to not let their personalities be known. I mean, Deion Dawkins, for an example. Like, do you see any kind of a governor on that carburetor? Like, he's just letting it go. And that's just one example, and it's a prominent one. I don't think that they were in any kind of a bad way before this, so I don't think that it should be that much different, like how the players feel about what they're and how they're allowed to express themselves. I don't feel like that's. I just don't agree with it. I think that they were given that runway from McDermott, even though his personality is that different. I hope that makes sense. I just did not. I don't see it as a talking point really myself. Let's hit a timeout. We'll come back for more. Hopefully time for a call or two if they're there at 803-0550. Mike is away today. I am the Bulldog, and this is WGR.
on the street last night. Said everything's alright. Roller coaster, make it through the day. I'm right. But life goes on. I could never imagine something better. Yeah, right. Now you're cooking on high heat in the middle of the street.
Time gonna be tight here, but let's see if we can squeeze. We're gonna talk to Bob. I'll talk to Bob. Bob is next up here on WGR. Thanks for calling, Bob. You're on the air.
Hey, Chris, how are you today?
Fan-freaking-tastic. How are you, Bob?
I'm great. What a difference a year makes from last year's NHL trade deadline, where almost every Sabre fan is saying trade everybody for a bag of pucks except for Dahlin and Thompson because no one knows how to win. And now we're worried that Jarmo might make a trade and upset the chemistry of the same flipping roster.
It's pretty incredible, right?
Well, I would like them to do two things. I'd like them to get Tuck signed. But, now that we have some players playing better, maybe they don't fit what Jarmo likes long term, even though we might like the way they're playing. I wouldn't mind them leveraging some assets now while maybe their value's a little higher, even though it might be a little short-term disruption in the team. But the messaging between the football team and the hockey team is amazing. If you think about McDermott saying we don't have a Super Bowl roster, but yet Allen says they do, and Bean says they do, and then Adams saying, we can't get anybody here because of palm trees and taxes, and yet what we have is winning solves all the problems, right? So it'll be interesting to see what Jarmo does, but you're right, it's going to be a bit of a tough 20 days without hockey now.
No doubt, Bob. Thanks for the call. Have yourself a good weekend. Yeah, it's as fascinating a time as I can remember. I mean, the winning, of course, is a part of it. You've got a new GM who's not really tied to anyone here, and the trade deadline. You've got a team that suddenly looks like a contender, and what do you do with it? Do you want to tweak? Do you want to pull something out to put something that you hope will be better in? I mean, I don't know. It's very delicate right now. My guess would be that they are close to getting something done with Tuck, and that's why he's talking like that, why he even said that last night. But the bottom line to me is any idea of trading him because you can't sign him is over. He stood in that room yesterday and said, he believes that they can win the Stanley Cup. And the optics of moving off a guy like that are just beyond awful. And if Adams were still in charge, I may not put anything past him, but there's no way he's off of this roster for the time being. But again, my guess would be that they get something done because he sounds committed to me. All right, time out again. Thanks for the call, Bob. We'll get back to some football with Sal Capaccio. The Bills made a couple of hires. There's news on the salary cap and league news as always. That's headed your way right after this on WGR.
Thursday, today, yeah, it's Friday.
It's Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
We so excited, we gonna have a ball today. Tomorrow is Saturday.
I'm itching inside. My liver's all twisted up. But you know what I did? I took Deborah, went to the liquor store, I loaded up with alcohol, more specifically vodka, whiskey, beer, tequila, more beer, more vodka, more whiskey, and more beer.
On WGR, Sports Radio 550.
Looking forward to the weekend. Today was Thursday. Today, yeah, it's Friday.
It's Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
We so excited, we gonna have a ball today. Tomorrow is Saturday.
I'm itching inside. My liver's all twisted up. But you know what I did? I took Deborah, went to the liquor store. I loaded up with alcohol, more specifically vodka, whiskey, beer, tequila, more beer, more vodka, more whiskey, and more beer.
On WGR Sports Radio 550.
Looking forward to the weekend. Thursday was Thursday. Today is Friday.
It's Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
We so excited. We gonna have a ball today. Tomorrow is Saturday.
I'm itching inside. My liver's all twisted up. But you know what I did? I took Deborah, went to the liquor store. I loaded up with alcohol, more specifically vodka, whiskey, beer, tequila, more beer, more vodka, more whiskey, and more beer.
On WGR Sports Radio 550.
Looking forward to the weekend. Thursday was Thursday. Today is Friday.
It's Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
We so excited. We gonna have a ball today. Tomorrow is Saturday.
I'm itching inside. My liver's all twisted up. But you know what I did? I took Deborah, went to the liquor store. I loaded up with alcohol, more specifically vodka, whiskey, beer, tequila, more beer, more vodka, more whiskey, and more beer.
On WGR Sports Radio 550.
Looking forward to the weekend. Thursday was Thursday. Today is Friday.
It's Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
We so excited. We gonna have a ball today. Tomorrow is Saturday.
I'm itching inside. My liver's all twisted up. But you know what I did? I took Deborah, went to the liquor store. I loaded up with alcohol, more specifically vodka, whiskey, beer, tequila, more beer, more vodka, more whiskey, and more beer.
On WGR Sports Radio 550.